The use of lethal force by police officers. Samuel Walker joins us now from Nebraska. He's an expert on issues of civil liberties, policing, and criminal justice policy. He's written 14 books on the subject. Samuel, so great to have you on the broadcast. What jumps out at you as you watch this video?
Well, this is a totally unjustified shooting. Mr. Scott was running away from the officer. He had no weapon. There was no threat to the officer of any sort. And the prevailing legal standard on police officer use of deadly force is there must be a threat to the life of the officer or someone else. Didn't exist in this case. So the authorities were correct in arresting him, the officer, and for terminating him. He's fired already.
Quickly, though, in a lot of these other cases that have kind of percolated in the news, it seems like it goes to a grand jury, things kind of linger. Are you surprised at how quickly they moved on this?
I was a little surprised. Very quick, but still, they have very conclusive evidence. We should point out that the legal proceedings are different from state to state. Some states, a grand jury is required. That's obviously a time-consuming process. Others, the prosecutor can do it directly.
Let me ask you about racial bias and inequality in lethal force cases. It's certainly been an issue that's, as I said, percolated in the news of late. Are they inconsistent?
Is what inconsistent?
Well, the inequality, I mean, is it out there? I mean, do you see this in cases where perhaps, well, in this case, he's an unarmed black man, and that's what we seem to see in a lot of these cases. What's happening out there on the landscape, would you say?
Well, there's a very pervasive pattern of racial bias in policing and all through the justice system. And it's particularly prominent in police officer use of deadly force, but it also shows up in traffic stops. It shows up in use of physical force. It shows up in sentencing. It shows up in the death penalty. So this is just one more example of the pervasive race discrimination that exists in our justice system.
How do we go about basically instituting police reforms? I mean, what's the best method forward?
Well, for each particular police action, there needs to be very clear policies on use of deadly force, on use of physical force, on when you can stop and frisk someone. Now, those rules and policies exist in many departments, even most departments. What is needed is for departments themselves to actually enforce the policies they have, in their policy manual. That's the real failure today.
A lot of people are pointing to this video and saying it looks incriminating in the sense that it looks as though the officer is going over and dropping something next to the suspect. Is that disturbing, what you saw there?
Well, that's still ambiguous, so I really don't want to comment on that. I think we need to withhold judgment. The main event here was the shooting, which again was totally unjustified.
What's going to happen with the FBI investigation?
Well, I'm not clear. I think the important thing I'd like to comment on is that a state agency has taken over the investigation. Now, that's actually a good step. We have, small, medium-sized departments. Shootings aren't very common, and they don't have the experience in dealing with that. And so it's actually a very good thing if a state agency, which over time develops the experience in dealing with these kinds of complex cases, and it'll just lead to a much more professional level of investigations.
One more quick question, body cameras, is that the answer?
Well, body cameras they're coming, they're here. They're spreading very rapidly. Now, body camera wouldn't have helped in this case because this is a shooting case. Now, in a shooting or a beating where the facts are ambiguous, you don't have a cell phone video of it, it will help in those cases. And I think one thing that's very important to add here is that video cameras, people's cell phone cameras, they are radically transforming the whole world of police accountability. It is increasing now that we actually see these events. So if you go back even into the early 90s, you just didn't see these things. And so a lot of people didn't believe that we had this level of police misconduct. And so it's cell phones are making a huge difference.
Samuel Walker.
In a positive way.
Samuel Walker joining us from Omaha, Nebraska. Thank you so much.